The old Zen master sat cross-legged in the dimly lit room, his silhouette barely visible against the flickering candlelight. His eyes were closed, his breathing slow and deliberate, as if he were suspended between worlds. Outside, the storm raged. Thunder cracked like the sky itself was splitting, and rain lashed against the wooden shutters. Yet, inside, the air was thick with an eerie calm. A young man, drenched and trembling, burst into the room, his face pale and eyes wild. "Master!" he gasped. "I can't stop thinking. My mind is a storm, and it's tearing me apart." The master didn't move, didn't speak. The young man hesitated, his desperation turning to confusion. What kind of answer was this? Silence? The young man, named Kodo, had traveled for days to reach the remote mountain temple. He had heard whispers of the master's wisdom, of his ability to quiet even the most troubled minds. Kodo had always been a thinker, a planner, someone who prided himself on his intellect. But lately, his thoughts had turned against him. They swirled like a tempest, endless and unrelenting, leaving him exhausted and lost. He had tried everything, books, meditation, even potions from the village healer, but nothing worked. Now, standing before the master, he felt a flicker of hope. Yet, the master's silence was maddening. Was this some kind of test? Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Kaito couldn't tell. The storm outside began to subside, but the storm within him raged on. He shifted uncomfortably, his wet clothes clinging to his skin. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. "Master," he pleaded, "please, say something. How do I stop this endless thinking?" The master's eyes remained closed, but a faint smile touched his lips. "The answer is already within you," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the fading rain. Kaito frowned. What did that mean? He had come here for guidance, not riddles. The next morning, Kaito awoke to the sound of birdsong. The storm had passed, leaving the world fresh and glistening. He found the master in the garden, tending to a small bonsai tree. The master's movements were slow and deliberate, each touch of his hands a gesture of reverence. Kaito watched in silence, his mind still restless but curious. "Master," he began, "how can I find the stillness you speak of?" The master paused, his gaze fixed on the tree. "Listen," he said. Kaito strained his ears, expecting some profound revelation. But all he heard was the rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. "I don't understand," he admitted. The master straightened and turned to face him. "You are like this tree," he said, gesturing to the bonsai. "It does not struggle to grow. It does not overthink its place in the world. It simply is. And in its stillness, it finds its strength." Kaito stared at the tree, its tiny branches perfectly shaped, its presence serene. He felt a pang of envy. How could something so small embody such peace? "But how do I become like the tree?" he asked. The master's eyes twinkled. "By letting go," he replied. "The more you try to control your thoughts, the more they control you. Be still, and they will settle on their own." Days turned into weeks, and Kaito remained at the temple, observing the master and practicing stillness. At first, it was agonizing. His mind rebelled, throwing up a barrage of thoughts, worries, and doubts. But slowly, he began to notice something. When he stopped fighting his thoughts, when he simply observed them without judgment, they lost their power. They became like clouds passing across the sky, there, but not permanent. One evening, as he sat by the garden pond, he felt a profound sense of peace. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the moon like a mirror. In that moment, he understood. The stillness wasn't something to achieve, it was something to surrender to. The master appeared beside him, as if sensing his realization. "You see now," he said, his voice gentle, "the power of stillness is not in the absence of thought, but in the acceptance of it. When you stop resisting, you find clarity." Kaito nodded, tears welling in his eyes. For the first time in years, his mind felt light, unburdened. "Thank you," he whispered. The master placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember," he said, "the storm will come again, but now you know how to weather it." Kaido left the temple the next morning, carrying the master's teachings in his heart. The journey back to his village felt different this time. The world seemed brighter, more alive. When he encountered challenges, he no longer fought them. Instead, he paused, breathed, and allowed himself to be still. Over time, he became known for his calm demeanor and wise counsel. People would come to him with their troubles, and he would share the master's simple yet profound lesson. Be like the tree. Be like the water. Find your stillness. Years later, Kaito returned to the mountain temple, now a master himself. The old master was gone, but his presence lingered in the garden, in the bonsai tree, and in the stillness of the air. Kaito sat where the master once had, his eyes closed, his breathing slow and deliberate. A young man, drenched and trembling, burst into the room. "Master!" he gasped. "I can't stop thinking. My mind is a storm, and it's tearing me apart." Kaito didn't move, didn't speak. The young man hesitated, his desperation turning to confusion. What kind of answer was this? Silence? And so, the cycle continued. The power of stillness passed from one generation to the next, a timeless remedy for the restless mind.